So, the Rugrats reboot is really good. Recently, Paramount Plus put out another series based off of previous Nickelodeon property, the other one being Camp Coral. I want to go ahead and say that I'm not going to talk about every new series Paramount Plus puts out. I'm not particularly interested in the Patrick show or whatever they're calling it, and the live action Fairly Odd Parents I absolutely won't be watching. However, the numerous SpongeBob spin-offs isn't why we're here today, and I don't want to dwell on them. That can be a topic for another day. Instead, I want to talk about the new Rugrats series. You see, they made more than a few changes this time around, and I want to show off what works and what doesn't. So the first thing of note is the cast has been shrunk for the new series. Specifically, unless I'm forgetting someone from the original show, we are down 4 characters. 3 of them make sense to me, Kira, Kimmy, and Dill. Removing these 3 makes complete and total sense to me. All of them were introduced later in the original series after all, and if the show goes on long enough, they can always be brought back. Though they were probably removed because Kimmy didn't add too much, originally acting primarily as a female Tommy, which the reboot doesn't need. Cutting Kimmy and her mother from the cast helps the series because it's 2 less characters that we have to focus on at any point. Dill added nothing but poop jokes, which the reboot just transferred to Phil, and originally Dill couldn't do anything but just sit and sometimes cause a little bit of chaos. Dill didn't get to be a character until all grown up, so in cutting him we lose nothing. The last character removed is one that I didn't think would be removed, the twins' father, Howard. Now here's the thing about Howard in the original. He was easily one of the least developed characters, often being outshined by his wife Betty. The only other character that I think has less development than Howard is probably Charlotte. Anyway, removing Howard is a decision that I'm on the fence about, because in Rugrats and All Grown Up, he really didn't do much. His character was the one that filled the more stereotypical female role of the household. He was the one that kept the house clean while Betty worked, and while that's fine, most jokes either boil down to him being lumped in with the other guys when they were all together, or taking shots at him being the more feminine parent of the DeVille household. The joke being that they swapped the stereotypical roles for Betty and Howard, and knowing that, I can't say I'm annoyed that Howard is gone, but I also can't say I'm glad he's gone. I'm very indifferent towards Howard, though if the reboot does go on to have a lot of episodes, I do think bringing him back could make an interesting dynamic for the twins now that they're in a single parent house like Chucky, only their other parent is still alive. Now the other changes are more character based, like how in the original the fans of Rugrats theorized that Betty was gay. In the reboot, she is, canonically. Or at least bi. I don't have much to say about this other than Betty is my favorite character this time around. She has these great comments about things that make me laugh every time she pulls one out.
Yes, I'm fluent in toaster.
Good for you. I dropped out of toaster in high school.
Tommy's parents also have been tweaked just a bit. Stu has gone from an inventor that can seemingly never create something that works to that. Also a gamer, nerd, fan of 90s music. He also seems to not be as far along in his career. He doesn't really do much as an inventor beyond one episode. Now Dee Dee is no longer reading up on Dr. Lipschitz and his thoughts on children. Instead, she is on just about every parenting blog she can find, following them to the word and stressing over every little thing. It's stated in the first episode that she has never left Tommy alone for nights because she's afraid leaving Tommy with a babysitter for one night would make her a bad parent. Despite that, she can often get so engrossed in her studying and parenting blogs that she doesn't pay attention to what Tommy and the other kids are doing. There's a really funny scene in the episode The Two in Jail because as Dee Dee and Grandpa Lou talk about their parenting styles, Dee Dee is the one to never take her eyes off her kids, while immediately getting too wrapped up in the parenting blogs to pay attention to her kids. All the while, Lou, who is content to let the kids play while he reads a newspaper, is sitting right there after being told his style was wrong. It's a clever piece of commentary that states that parents who get wrapped up in trying to be the best parents they can be with all the right blogs to tell them what to do, oftentimes does the exact same things that their parents did. The other thing they changed about Dee Dee is now she sells clothes that she makes online. This is actually a big change from the original show. You would be forgiven if you didn't know, but Dee Dee wasn't a stay-at-home mom. She was a teacher at high school, specifically a home ec teacher. And to my knowledge, I don't think it ever came up after season 1. Then again, I wasn't going to go through 9 seasons of the show to talk about its reboot. Grandpa Lou is the character that I'm most on the fence about. For one, in the original, he had a slew of quotable lines. Those defining character traits was being grumpy and or hitting on older women, alongside not paying attention to the kids. Now he's a hippie that doesn't want to embrace new technology. Granted, he didn't know how to use a calculator in the original, so that one carried over. I am torn because making him a hippie time-wise makes sense. He would have been around during Vietnam and either would have joined up or spent time protesting, or both. He's more soft-spoken this time and still shows that he cares about his family. I like this version of Lou, but I also like the original as well. Honestly, that moment between him and Dee Dee in the last episode is the best in between of both versions, and I would prefer more of that. Finally, they changed Drew and Charlotte. Charlotte, now being part of the city council, has taken a more in charge, more so than she already was, role in her marriage. She specifically is shown to not like Drew's side of the family, and to not really like him at all too much. She very much is a her way or the highway type of person, which we can see in the episode One Big Happy Family with Angelica's perception of a healthy family dynamic. She also cares more about her status than anything else. It's also important that Charlotte is the one spoiling Angelica this time around, where originally it was Drew's role. Drew, however, is shown to care far more about his family than status. The first time we see this is in the pilot episode. He is shown to take the first chance he can get to join up with the other adults so that he can have fun. His interests are fairly similar to Stu's, and the two get along much better. Every interaction they have now doesn't end in an argument like the original. While both versions are fairly typical sibling dynamics, I definitely would take the reboot over the original. I like the parents of the reboot. They all feel like they grew up in the 90s and early 2000s. All the parents also feel like more realized versions of their original counterparts, with far more character. Now, when it comes down to the babies, they haven't changed a bit, with the exception of Angelica and Susie. Depending on who you are, you may like this change or not, and I could see an argument both ways. Angelica, the demon child from the original run, has been scaled back more than a little bit. Don't get me wrong, she's still a spoiled brat and that revels in torturing the kids, but she doesn't come across as malicious as she used to. Seemingly gone are the days where Angelica will destroy things and blame the babies. Then again, in the first season of the original show, Angelica was just kinda bossy. Yeah, she did some cruel things to the kids, like throw Tommy's new ball over the fence in the second episode, but then she didn't do anything really cruel until the trial, which was the second segment of episode 11. Beyond that, she was just kinda mean. My point being, give it some time for the writers to figure it out. The first season of the original run was 13 episodes, 12 of which had 2 segments per episode. The reboot is 5 episodes, with 4 of them having 2 segments per. Now, the last character I'm talking about is Susie. In the original, Susie was meant to be the antithesis to Angelica, the good character that would call Angelica out on her blatant lies and keep her in check. In the reboot, they reeled her back as well, and honestly, I think this was a smart decision. To my knowledge, and I could be wrong because I haven't watched the full series in years, but Angelica and Susie, when they would argue, would usually stand around yelling at each other. The problem with that being that instead of telling a story, we get to watch 2 3-year-olds yell at each other. Susie still calls Angelica out in the reboot. It's one of the first things she does after all. However, with her being toned back, it allows the story to flow a little more naturally and transition better. In my opinion, at least. It allows Susie to be along for the ride and give her more time to shine. However, she's usually in the background of this run of episodes. If they had more episodes, I could see this not being a problem, but with 5 a season, you can only have the characters do so much. And this show wants to use all the characters they have to their best potential. The show has to balance each character torn between 2 plots in 11-minute episodes. The problem then becomes giving every character something to do without making it feel forced. At least one character would be left behind with a cast this big, and unfortunately those characters were Susie, her parents, and Chaz, Chucky's dad. While Chaz does get to shine, there isn't too much to say about him. Anyway, now that we're 4 pages into the script, why don't we take a look at the first episode? So the episode second time around starts with a parody of Jurassic Park, where the kids are driving through a jungle until they come across a dinosaur. They quickly get out a few jokes that got a real laugh out of me the first time. One about Phil and Lil abandoning the others because they don't want to die, one where Susie misreads a side mirror. Though I wish the text was more legible. It could be that I just got a copy that's downscaled, though I doubt it. But those are just some of the jokes in the scene. I love the shot of Tommy and Susie when the twins come back in their hamster ball. The only way I can describe Tommy's face is a mix of worry and fear, though I couldn't tell you who he was worried for, and this one shot just gets a laugh out of me every time. I also love how Tommy decides to take on a T-Rex with an electric screwdriver, and he's only worried when the battery dies, so he swaps over to his sidearm, his bottle, to shoot the dinosaur. And if you know anything about Rugrats, you know the dinosaur is Angelica. Now, I like this scene for 2 reasons. The first being, my favorite episodes of the original were always the adventure episodes, the ones that took place in the kids' imaginations. There was always something special and magical about those episodes that drew me in. The other reason is that it sets up the climax of the episode, which we will get to. So we get introduced to the adults and get another great joke out of them. As they are leaving the park, we are shown that Chucky is afraid of a T-Rex statue in the park, and then we cut to the coffee shop that Betty works at or owns. I'm going with owns, where Chucky vows to be braver, so he eats a mud and a worm, which freaks him out. While I'm not a fan of the shot of Chucky eating sand from inside of his mouth, I would be lying if I said it wasn't cool to see them experimenting with these more dynamic shots, testing out what works and what doesn't. It's something this episode does a lot, and I do generally enjoy it. Also, the shot of Mudbeard Lil drinking her mud coffee is pretty funny on its own. Later on, back at Tommy's house, we find Grandpa, who is most definitely high, doing yoga with the kids. Angelica shows up with a doctor place and learns about the worm Chucky is. She immediately tells Chucky that he's going to be a worm and there's no cure. Right beforehand, the adults learn that their favorite band is getting back together and they plan on going to the concert the next day. That night, we see Chaz reading Chucky a bedtime story that scares Chucky and slightly disturbs Chaz. Right after, Chucky falls asleep where he has a nightmare about being a worm. I love the beginning of this sequence. It starts off unsettling with these fishing hooks swinging around Chucky, followed by Angelica appearing on one mocking him. However, when Chucky becomes a worm in his dream, we get a narrator that Chucky can hear telling us what worms do.
It's here in the yucky dirt that the sad worm boy lives a solitary existence.
I don't like the narrator. It kind of clashes with the feel that they established, though he only lasts a few lines before we get nightmare fuel. The crow Angelica eats Chucky, and we cut to the next day where Chucky's telling the others about his dream. Susie comes in after we meet Angelica's mom, and she misinterprets a medical textbook and finds a cure for Chucky. All he needs is a dinosaur tooth. So, Grandpa is going to make cookies to keep the kids happy, and Angelica, learning that the kids want to get a dinosaur tooth, tells them that there's a dinosaur in the park, the statue from earlier, and that they can borrow her car to go there, simply because if they aren't around, then she can have all the cookies. Now, in any other series, this would be a stupid plot point, because sending them away wouldn't help Angelica get all the cookies, though one of Rugrats' biggest strengths as a series, both old and new, is that all the kids are naive. None of them are capable of thinking things all the way through, allowing them to make these kinds of mistakes, and I'm glad to see them using this fact to their advantage. Also, this is where they introduce a reoccurring gag about what Angelica threatens them with, and after Angelica sends them away, she steals the loose phone and opens up the dating app Stu and Drew put on his phone, and starts liking everyone. Now, the kids, barring Angelica, go on a joyride through the city. Dee Dee calls Angelica and asks to see Tommy, and Angelica hangs up on her. Then the women Angelica liked Blue start appearing at the house. At the same time, the kids make it to the park and drown Angelica's car in the pond. They make their way to the T-Rex statue, and back at the house, 3 women have appeared, all of which are helping Lou make cookies. And they are all entirely okay being there on a perceived date with him all at once. Then Graham appears. Lou realizes what's happened with Angelica playing with his phone and realizes the babies are gone. So, Lou goes out to find the kids with Angelica, and Graham appears to help. The kids make it to the T-Rex, and Tommy climbs the statue to steal a tooth from the dinosaur. Chucky, fearing that Tommy would fall off the statue, climbs up just in time for Tommy to slip off and fall. Chucky grabs him, also grabbing the tooth in the process, and as the tooth breaks off and they fall, Spike shows up and saves them. Chucky wishes away his fake disease, and Lou and Graham show up finding the kids. The group ends up backstage at the adults' concert, and the kids walk out on stage where their parents see them. Now, they do have a song for the concert that pretty much states that the second time around, Rugrats is going to be better. Now, it's easy to interpret this as a show saying the reboot will be a better show, though I don't think that's what they're going for. If you've spent any time on the internet at all, you've probably seen videos about all the dirty jokes you missed in the shows you watched as a kid. You know the ones. When we watch these shows as kids, those jokes are there, but we can't appreciate them because we don't understand the jokes. But the second time around, when we are older and we see those jokes, we do. Our nostalgia gives us a love for the jokes we laughed at as kids, and now we see all the other effort put into these shows. Or, what made them good then is twice as good now, because we are no longer looking at half the picture. Now, I really like this series. I enjoyed every second of the show, which is something I couldn't say about Camp Coral. There is effort and love put into the show. You can tell with every new camera angle, every funny joke. I can tell because of how well they integrated technology into the show. Any other series that I've seen an iPhone in has done it in a way that feels unnatural. It feels like they put cell phones and tablets and all the other peripherals in because technology. The Rugrats reboot somehow manages to get around that, and I applaud that. Because for the first time ever, I'm not rolling my eyes at a plot point that revolves around a phone app. Of course, that's just me, and I'm sure there's other media that manages it well, or I'm just a sucker for older tech and shows. Gives it a little more of a timeless feel. But what do you guys think? I know there's people that grew up on Rugrats more than I did. I grew up more on SpongeBob than Rugrats, though both were big parts of my childhood. And I know that they will hold the original in high regard, and that there are those that will hold the reboot in high regard. If you've seen both, let me know which one you like more. At current, I would have to say the original just based off how many episodes there are, and I do like the original Lou more, if only slightly. If the reboot continues this quality, that will change though. And if you like this video, throw me a like and share this video around. I enjoy making content, the more people that watch, the more I want to make, and I'm always wanting to get better. But next time I might return to a series that you guys seem to enjoy.